Dear Sylvia, Honorable Ms. Maria del Carmen Alba Prieto, President of the Congress of Peru, dear Ms. Edna Vega Rangel, Director General of the Mexican National Commission on Housing, distinguished members of Parliament and members of the Constitutional Assembly of Chile. Dear friends, thank you for inviting me as the UN Special Rapporteur on the right to adequate housing to this event discussing the inclusion of the right to adequate housing in the constitutions of Peru, Chile, and Mexico. Many thanks to CIDAP, the Habitat International Coalition, the International Alliance of Inhabitants, Miseria, and CAFOD for organizing this very timely and important event. As most of you know, the right to adequate housing is enshrined in Article 11 of the International Covenant on Economic, Social, and Cultural Rights as a binding treaty norm. All states in Latin America, with the exception of Cuba, have ratified this covenant. According to Article 12 of the covenant, all member states of this treaty have to take steps to achieve progressively the full realization of the rights recognized in the present covenant by all appropriate means, including particularly the adoption of legislative measures. Furthermore, all states have to guarantee the rights included in the treaty, including the right to adequate housing, without any discrimination. The treaty obligation to take such measures to enshrine and protect the right to adequate housing may be carried out by states by constitutional means or through legislation, preferably in both. It is also very important to guarantee that these constitutional and legal provisions are implementable in practice through an appropriate regulatory framework, allocation of adequate budgets, and designating responsible institutions for their implementation and oversight. Such implementation must be possible in courts in cases challenging any potential violation of the human right to adequate housing, as well as through non-judicial mechanisms that fully protect access to justice for victims of housing rights violations. It is also important to highlight that either constitutional or national law should guarantee the right to adequate housing with all its 7 elements as identified by the UN Committee on Economic, Social, and Cultural Rights in its General Comment number 4 on the right to adequate housing, namely security of tenure, availability of services, affordability, habitability, accessibility, location, and cultural adequacy. As far as the first element of the right to adequate housing is concerned, security of tenure, General Comment number 7 on forced evictions is also essential. National law should also include protections against arbitrary and forced evictions as set out in this General Comment and in the basic principles and guidelines on development-based evictions and displacement. I would also kindly ask members of the Constitutional Assemblies and of Parliaments to study closely General Comment number 3 on the nature of state party obligations of the covenant and General Comment number 9 on the domestic application of the covenant, both issued by the UN Committee on Economic, Social, and Cultural Rights. These 2 general comments specify that the victims whose right to adequate housing and other economic, social, and cultural rights are violated must have effective remedies before competent national administrative bodies or judicial tribunals. Key principles relating to judicial and non-judicial remedies for violation of housing rights are outlined in the report of my predecessor on access to justice for the right to adequate housing. Finally, I would also like to refer you to my most recent report on discrimination in the context of housing that I presented yesterday to the General Assembly of the United Nations. In this report, I underlined that in order to ensure non-discrimination in relation to the right to adequate housing, national law must be reformed, including by adopting comprehensive anti-discrimination legislation covering all protected groups, including women, children, persons with disabilities, LGBTIQ persons, migrants, IDPs and refugees, foreigners, racial, ethnic, and religious groups, and other minorities, persons living in situations of homelessness and in informal settlements, and prohibiting any form of discrimination in relation to the right to adequate housing by all public and private entities, including public and private housing builders, owners, agents, and credit providers. Dear representatives, if the right to adequate housing and the principle of non-discrimination are both fully enshrined in a national constitution, it is much easier to push for needed legislation to further implement it. Several constitutions in other countries refer to housing as an aim of state policy, while other constitutions say that the state should provide public housing to those in need. However, these constitutions do not protect the right to adequate housing as such. Such references to housing in constitutional texts are, in my experience, not sufficient to ensure that right to adequate housing is fully anchored in the Constitution and can be relied upon. Too often, such indirect constitutional provisions do not allow victims whose right to adequate housing may have been violated to claim their rights. Other constitutions contain provisions which nominally declare a protection of the right to adequate housing, but contain property rights clauses which stand in the way of implementing the right to housing. In my experience, protection of the right to housing in a constitution must be accompanied by a constitutional recognition that property has a social function and that public regulation to protect right to housing may not be challenged without adequate cause as a violation of property rights. Right to housing is a constitutional right, but is also a human right and is not a right to a commodity and cannot coexist with over-commodified property. Furthermore, it would be welcome if constitutional texts that refer to the right to adequate housing draw on and reflect the wording of the International Covenant on Economic, Social, and Cultural Rights and the extensive jurisprudence on it. This allows national courts, including constitutional courts, to interpret such constitutional provisions in conformity with international human rights law ratified by the state, including interpretations by international treaty bodies, such as the Committee on Economic, Social, and Cultural Rights, as well as the appropriate comparative examples from other countries which draw on such international texts. Of course, we all know that enshrining a human right in constitutional and national law may itself not be sufficient to ensure that this right is fully guaranteed and protected if the population is insufficiently aware of its rights, if the lawyers, judges, and lawmakers are not trained about the meaning and interpretation of this right, or if there are significant barriers that prevent victims from having access to justice. Any implementing legislation must pay sufficient attention to these dimensions. It should also encourage other national human rights institutions, equality bodies, and civil society to monitor the implementation of this right and help suggest measures to improve the legal and constitutional protection of this right periodically at the national level. Finally, by enshrining the right to adequate housing in constitutional law, a clear message is sent. All human rights, both civil and political, and economic, social, and cultural rights have the same importance, are indivisible and interdependent. There should be no reason why some rights are explicitly protected while others are completely absent in the Constitution. I therefore would like to end my presentation with a strong encouragement to enshrine this fundamental social and economic right fully in constitutional law. I would be more than delighted to be able to report in some few years as Special Rapporteur on Right to Adequate Housing to the General Assembly of the United Nations and its Human Rights Council that Chile, Peru, Mexico, and other countries have added during my tenure the right to adequate housing in their respective constitutions or revised their constitutions to ensure that their wording is fully aligned with international human rights law. If I can be helpful to support such processes in one form or another, whether through legal advice or public encouragement, I am more than happy to do so. Many thanks for your attention.